We remember a Husker lost too soon, part of a Friday mailbag.
You are Locked On Nebraska, your daily Nebraska Cornhuskers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, and thanks for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And this episode is brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. Mazda, move and be moved.
All right, welcome. Connor Happer, Sherman with you here on this Friday mailbag edition. We'll get to the mailbag here in just a couple minutes. But unfortunately, sad news came through yesterday in the Nebraska community. Former Nebraska football player Matt Vrzal, known to many, as a variety of different things, offensive lineman on the mid-90s Nebraska, 2 national championship teams. But I would say this, Mitch, it's not very common around here that you win a couple national championships and then you become known as, something else. And I think in his case, a mentor to many and a business owner, a successful business owner, and a friend to many. Matt Vrzal yesterday got that news very, very sad. He was the owner of Paisans Pizzeria at about 168th and Center.
56th and Center.
Somewhere around there. But man, that is awful news yesterday.
51 years old. Had coached at Scott High School, Scott Catholic, until about a year ago, I think. I ran into Verz last Friday. I went to go to Paisans to grab some lunch and meet a friend, and I pulled into the parking lot, and Verz was loading up pizzas into a vehicle. He said he had Scott's big gathering to cater that night and another event, and he'd been cooking inside the restaurant since 3:30 in the morning, so the dining room was closed until 3 that afternoon, and we talked for a few minutes about what was coming that weekend, the big Michigan game, and it was the 95 reunion, of course. So in his last week with us, Verz got to go visit with his 1995 Nebraska teammates on the 30-year anniversary and spend Friday night. We talked about Friday night. I assume he was there on Saturday. I didn't see him Saturday at the game, but I know he was there Friday night, hanging with all the old linemen, visiting with the guys. So he was somebody who always had time. You'd go into the restaurant.
Good way to put it.
And he would sit down and talk, and there would be things going on around him, and he'd get up and go deal with some problem and then come back and talk. And, Grand Island, represented the city of Grand Island, noted Chicago sports fan.
Mm-hmm.
As you said, mentor to high school kids. He just had his finger on the pulse of whatever was going on in high school sports around the state of Nebraska. Started out in the pizza business in Lincoln and then moved it to Omaha. It's been a while. He was somebody who I think all communities within sports in Nebraska and so many other areas felt a sense of connection to. So really, really sad. It goes without saying, to mourn the loss of Matt Vrzal.
As you said, always had time, but actually didn't in all actuality.
Right.
He was just kind of one of those guys. I didn't really know him particularly well, but I'd heard him on the radio for years, going on our morning show on 1620 The Zone, and kind of just being around him a little bit. And I finally did bump into him at a state championship game, football state championship game, a couple of years ago. And, he'd always come off to me as sort of like, maybe a tough nut to crack a little bit, right? Like a little he's got opinions. He's got opinions.
Sure.
And so I met him. I kind of just, went up to him and he's like, oh man, yeah, immediately friendly, like he had known me for a long time. And so I think that's the kind of guy that he was. Didn't ever meet anybody that wasn't, that he wasn't going to treat well and wasn't going to be a friend too. And so that's the kind of guy that we lost yesterday.
The same person to everyone. He could be talking to the head coach at the University of Nebraska, which he did, or he could be talking. Well, I don't know about his relationship with Matt Vrzal, but I know previous versions of head coaches. There would be communication. He could be talking to.
They got the unadulterated, the unfiltered takes. Yeah.
If you didn't know him and you walked into Paisan's to order a pizza or pick up a pizza, and you were wearing a shirt that caught his attention, or you asked a question or made a comment about Nebraska football or high school sports, or it doesn't even have to be football. It could be anything. He would talk to you the same way that he would talk to the athletic director or the president of the university or the head football coach. Like what you saw with Verz was what you got.
100%. All right. So we'll miss him. Certainly our 1620 The Zone family will, and I know there's many in the local community who will have a big hole in what they're doing, whether it be right now or going forward. We'll take a quick timeout. We'll get to your questions in the mailbag on this Friday show when we return on the Locked On Nebraska podcast.
All right, a message right now from Mazda. This is Mazda's Moving the Game Forward, brought to you by those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it, because these moments do more than win. They push what's possible. They remind us to go that extra yard, shift into the extra gear, keep moving the game forward. I want to talk about one play that defined Nebraska's performance last week against Michigan. It came when Dylan Raiola in the first half hit Ja'Cory Barney for a 26-yard touchdown pass. Raiola had to do all kinds of stuff pre-snap, change the play. He saw the double move that Ja'Cory put on the defense, and he dropped that ball in there for a touchdown to show that no matter the circumstances, Nebraska was set in that game to keep moving forward. Connections like that touchdown keep fans and players alike moving forward, always chasing the next great moment. So when you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. All right, back with you on this Friday mailbag episode of the Locked On Nebraska podcast. Mitch Sherman, Connor Happer. We are going to get to the questions again. Our condolences to Matt Vrzal and his family. We will make this as much of a regular show as we can. Apologies if we don't get to every question that came into the hopper this week after spending those opening minutes on a deserving subject. We'll start with Patrick in Pilger, Nebraska. He says, with the approved decision to change the portal window to just one period in January, is it possible that the traditional spring game could return? Enjoy your bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Patrick. Appreciate it. I suppose I just, we talked about it a lot in the spring. I don't think that's why Nebraska's spring game got canceled. No. I think that's part of the reason, but I think mostly Matt Vrzal just didn't want to do it. And that's okay. And I think that will still probably be the case. I guess you never really know what he's going to, be cooking on a yearly basis. Maybe they'll do something different with it. Hard to tell.
The only caveat being that it makes money. The spring game does make money by selling tickets, and they may decide as they continue to look for ways to make money and pay for the expensive sport that college football is, that it's best to sell tickets to a spring game. Nebraska did change it up late in the spring and try to boost ticket sales, but it just wasn't what the spring game normally is, because you didn't have the promotion and the lead up and the first and second teamers out there running football plays. I don't think it comes back. I think once you close the door on that, it's probably gone. And the transfer portal had very little to do with with the decision that was made. As we talked about back then, the portal was closed when the spring game occurred.
Right.
So now it's going to be closed several months before. We haven't talked much about that decision to go to just one portal period, but that's something that we will talk about when we get later in the season. So I think the spring game is probably gone, but we'll see next spring. Extra thought from Patrick. He says, I heard someone mention on a podcast that winning a game like Michigan would have helped the push for the support to upgrade the football stadium. At this point, to me, it's about trenches and troughs. I'd rather use a trough in South Stadium than see our trench just pushed around by the likes of Michigan. So, touche. I think a lot of people, Patrick, are more concerned with the trenches than they are with the troughs. Raise money to build a team with Big Ten talent. The stadium upgrade can wait until the winning supports it naturally.
Yeah,
I don't think it's one over the other. Like they're not. They're not waiting on stadium upgrades because of money that is going to NIL instead. This is an optics thing with the university budget issues looming large. So the stadium upgrades are going to come.
And make no mistake, like it's going to be a booster funded project, no doubt. They need donations, but I would imagine when they ultimately do this, there's going to be money coming from other places as well. That's
Absolutely.
a conversation we could have down the road. But yeah, there's going to be money coming from a variety of different places.
Yep. All right, let's go to Danny in Salt Lake City. He says, when you watch Michigan State through 4 games, what is one area or unit that concerns you at how Nebraska matches up? And what's one area where you feel confident about the Huskers' ability?
Wow, Danny in Salt Lake City. First of all, should we stop and pause real quick and think about what that does for our map?
We have a map. I'm gonna have to show last week's map because
that's okay.
Nathan did send one in. I haven't updated it. I'll upload it and we'll get it in the show. Maybe we'll put it in like next Monday. But we had our question from Aaron yesterday from Montana. And that needs to be added to the map too. And then you can see here, if you're watching on YouTube, that Utah is not represented. Well, now it is because of Danny and Salt Lake. So there's the world map. We had Hawaii. Hawaii is in the updated edition. Sorry, Nathan. I downloaded it and then did not put it into the show, but we'll get it there. We'll get it there next week. Appreciate all the work that you do.
Can you believe it? Finally, after all this time, we have Utah. I mean, I figured we would have had, Salt Lake's a pretty big city. So thank you, Danny, for I think Danny texted into the show. I don't know how he got my number, but
I don't know.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, Danny, I'm concerned about, again, Nebraska's ability to stop a quarterback who is aggressive with his feet, as Aiden Childs is. That's probably the biggest thing here. Michigan State does not rush the passer in the way that Michigan did. So Nebraska should be able to protect Dylan Raiola. But on the defensive side for the Huskers, guarding against that QB run is probably the biggest thing. And then, Connor, where do you feel confident in Nebraska's ability to match up here?
Well, their defense stinks. It's given up a whole bunch of points to USC, which is no crime. But the Youngstown State one sort of jumps at you a little bit.
Yeah.
24 points to an FCS team. The Boston College double overtime. Nobody could get a stop in that game. So their defense has not been good so far through 4 games. They also have a bye this week. Childs is a good player, as you mentioned. I don't know if it's he's got some running stats. He's ran for a couple touchdowns this year, 154 yards over 4 games. I don't know if it's that necessarily jumps out to me about him. I just think he's a pretty solid all around player. So they have a couple good wide receivers. They're trying out a bunch of different running backs at the moment. Marsh, their wide receiver, is a good player. And then Kelly is their other one. Kelly actually has more catches at this point. So I think they have a couple good offensive weapons. Jonathan Smith is a good offensive coach. But it's a game that Nebraska will probably be a touchdown favorite in, would be my guess. I guess I haven't seen an advanced line yet. And
that's about
right. I don't know. Yeah, nothing in particular, I guess, would be my answer to that question.
The Spartans are 115th against the pass in yards allowed per game. So they've allowed 9 touchdown passes in 4 games. And, USC inflicted some damage for sure to inflate those stats. But I think Nebraska's going to be able to throw the ball. All right, from Aaron, I've been watching the show since the beginning and followed Happer. And I've been following Happer since the recruiting hour.
Wow.
So
do you know about the
going way
recruiting
back.
hour, Mitch?
No, not specifically. Is this something
Right.
that you did? This is obviously from your Lincoln days.
Yes,
Your
this is
days
when
on Lincoln
Schaefer and I teamed up.
Yeah.
Schaefer decided he wanted to finally do a daily radio show, and he would come in for an hour from 2 to 3, and we would talk about recruiting. But it eventually, there's only so much recruiting that you could talk about. So eventually it wasn't really about recruiting anymore.
Did you do this daily or was it a weekly segment?
It was daily. And then eventually
daily,
after that, after probably a year or so, we had a full show together. So
Aaron is really dedicated to your
thank you, Aaron.
To your talents. He is currently living, he says, I'm currently living in Udon Thani, Thailand on the Thai-Laos border.
Whoa.
Good luck finding that pin. We already have one in Thailand, so that may just have to double for Aaron. My question, what do you think of Clay Travis's idea that Nebraska is more suited for the SEC than the Big Ten? It makes sense to me. Curious to hear your thoughts. Also, how do you feel about the long-term outlook of the program under Coach Rule? Let's go to his first question. So I saw this. I saw Clay Travis's his take, and on the surface, he's saying, "Hey, Nebraska identifies more with the likes of Texas, Texas A&M, Oklahoma, Missouri, and Arkansas than it does with teams in the Big Ten." And all right, like that is not a bad way to go. I don't think that. I think Nebraska's staying in the Big Ten, first of all. I also think that there was something here to the whole notion where people nationally in various forms of media, for whatever reason, took this week after Nebraska was in the spotlight and just said, I'm going to have a take about Nebraska that might ruffle some feathers, and it's going to have a good chance to get viewed and discussed a lot. For whatever reason, Nebraska was just topic du jour this week, and this was Clay Travis's way of jumping in because it was about the SEC.
No doubt about it. I mean, I think the way that these conversations stop is if they win a game against Michigan, they create some history. In the Big Ten, they haven't had a lot of momentous wins, in these 15 years of being in the conference, which is amazing to think about. I think if you get to the actual point that he was making, which is, like you said, Mitch, they're just more of a cultural fit in the SEC than they are in the Big Ten. I agree with him. I do. I don't think Nebraska is a cultural fit in the Big Ten. Nebraska has always considered itself as sort of an outlier, a maverick, a school that cares about football over most things, not necessarily a high academic institution, not necessarily a fully well-rounded athletic department. Just historically, I think they want to care about these things, and they're trying to act more Big Ten-ish, as the years have gone along. And at a certain point, time just catches up with you when you are that. But I also don't think that they're a perfect cultural fit in the SEC either. I just think they're kind of, Nebraska has historically been a relevant program regardless of what their surroundings have been up until the last 15 or 20 years here. So they have never been a fit in the Big Ten, but that, unfortunately, that doesn't matter in a world where you get paid out $1 billion to be in the conference that you're in.
Culture is a big word, and it's one that's interpreted by different people in a lot of different ways. And you can make a case that Nebraska fits with the programs in the states and the populations that he mentioned better than it does with Wisconsin, Minnesota, Iowa, Illinois, and others. And you can make a case on the side of the Big Ten when it comes to culture as well. So we're just going to leave that out there for everybody to interpret in their own way. I think Nebraska fits fine in the Big Ten. Is it a perfect fit? No. But at this point, the Big Ten stretches from coast to coast and goes from Los Angeles to New York and Washington, D.C. So the culture of the Big Ten is wide ranging, and Nebraska, it does match up somewhere within that realm. From Greg in SEC country, Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. This is more Big 12 country. Hi, fellas. Matt Vrzal has said that Mike Gundy's a great X's and O's coach. Gundy cannot and will not manage NIL or the transfer portal and was fired as a result of this. Is it possible that Coach Rule would hire Gundy for his expertise, as Nebraska's very adept at those things which Gundy cannot manage? I don't see him coming on staff in Lincoln.
I don't either.
I think he wants to be a head coach.
I think he's a smart football mind, and yeah, like you said, I think he wants to be a head coach. So you have to align with what the coach wants next out of his career as well. I have a hard time seeing it. I'm sure they're on good terms. Obviously, there's a connection there with Holgerson, but probably not. I think they would like to have a mind like that on their staff, as we've seen in the past, but I don't know if he'd be the right person at the right time.
Yep, I agree. I don't see it happening.
Yeah.
I think he's going to sit out the rest of the year and try to get a head coaching job in 2026. From Brandon, small sample size, but Michigan shut out the Huskers in the first and third quarters, and so did Cincinnati. What are some reasons for the slow starts, and what does Nebraska need to do better to start both halves? It's good point.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't buy into the old adage of like the halftime adjustments. How good are you at halftime adjustments thing? I think it's more of like a momentum deal. And it was frustrating to me that Nebraska got a 3-and-out, or got a stop coming right out of the half defensively after you had tied it before the half on a Hail Mary, and then had a very quick 3-and-out, I believe, and you're on your own first offensive possession. That was a pretty deflating moment, I think, for people. So, in those moments where they've had a chance to kind of step on the throats, they haven't done it. Not that Nebraska could have stopped Michigan out at that point in time, but
that was the farthest thing from that was what was about to happen.
Yeah. They had a chance to jump on top,
right,
and shock them a little bit, and didn't take advantage of it. So I don't know. I don't think there's a root cause there other than just not being able to get it done.
Killer instinct. They're still looking for it. They're growing as a football program, and they made strides in a lot of areas. And that's one place that they can still do better. There are teams that you've seen over the years, and I think coaches can instill this kind of attitude. I always think about Bob Stoops' early teams at Oklahoma and the way they would just jump on teams out of the gates. And you see that from Curt Cignetti at Indiana. We're going to make him a part of every episode, I think, from moving forward. But you see that from his teams and having that killer instinct, whether it's at the beginning of a game or knocking a team out when they get them on the ropes. And that's just not something that we're seeing from Nebraska right now. I don't know if it's the way that Matt Rule teams are coached to play. He often talks about how it's a marathon, not a sprint, and you want to play your best football in the fourth quarter, but it is okay to play good football and play your best football, strong football, with an urgency in the first quarter and out of the half as well.
Yeah.
Go to Lane. Yeah, let's go to Lane in Iowa Park, Texas. I had to look this up on the map to make sure that this place existed. Never heard of Iowa Park, Texas, but it does up there in North Texas. He says, why didn't Nebraska stack up on talent the year before the NIL rules got applied? So he's talking about the year before the clearinghouse went into effect. Do we not have the money to go get a player like Justice Haynes, who came to Michigan from Alabama? Should the Huskers have gone like Ohio State and Oregon and spent unlimited, or do we not have unlimited money? Now that there is a cap, what do they need to do to hit on more NIL additions? Does it maybe level out the playing field for Nebraska because they can't get outbid? Love the show. Thank you both. And then Lane did email back in to say that he heard Matt Rule answered this question on Monday, but we're going to address it anyway because there's some misnomers here in what Lane's talking about.
Okay, so great question. Does Nebraska have unlimited money? No.
Right.
No.
Also, I don't know that it evens out the playing field because, as Matt Rule said on Monday, teams are going to spend what they're going to spend, and like we've learned fairly fast in this clearinghouse world, that it's probably not going to limit the Texas Techs and Michigans or Ohio States of the world, the schools that do have the money, from going out and spending it. The clearinghouse is maybe a paper tiger.
Yeah, and so you're going to get quote unquote outbid. I think Rule was talking about the running back situation, and like, hey, I got outbid. I don't think that is like a full-on encapsulating 100% accurate picture of how that went. I think he did get outbid. But I think Nebraska could have done a little bit more work on the front end to be able to
talking about Charmar Brown,
that commitment from Marty Brown. So you still have to recruit the player, you still have to build a relationship, and then if the money works out, the money works out. It's not a 100% of the time situation where it's like, this guy's offering me $800,000. This guy's offering me $750,000. I will go to the $800,000 school. That's not how it works. It's a total picture.
In the end, it did get outbid. Miami upped the price for Brown, but there were a lot of things working in Nebraska's favor, and it could have perhaps turned the conversation and ended the conversation earlier if the Huskers had been more aggressive. You also put value on players, and you just you can't go above value and run an efficient program. Like, some of this is about efficiency because there are not unlimited funds. Nebraska chose to place a lot of value on the wide receiver spot, on the offensive line, and with varying results in the last transfer portal cycle. And hindsight is showing that the Huskers should have probably invested more in a running back and in getting a high quality defensive lineman. So there you are. Every year you're going to have some of these things you can second guess.
All right, got a few more questions from you guys, but we'll take a break and we'll be back with our final segment coming up next. But first, it's almost the weekend, and it's time to look back again and recognize an MVP who delivered this week, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order. This guy delivered when it mattered the most. Let's break it down. It's Ja'Cory Barney, or AKA Jacoby Blarney, as some people call him on the CBS broadcast last week. Yes, that's right. Jacoby Blarney caught 2 touchdowns, including the Hail Mary right before half. When the pressure was on, he came through. And if you've been watching week after week, of course, this was not a fluke. He is on a streak. And just like Jacoby Blarney delivered for Nebraska on Saturday, DoorDash delivers on your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you save every Saturday you order. Stack it up all season long, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday and keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through November 18th. And a word from our friends at 5 Hour Energy. Coming up on daylight savings. Can you believe that? It's sneaking up on us right now. And if you get to that point and you feel that lost hour of sleep, or if you're feeling it before the time changes, 5 Hour Energy has your back. The extra sunshine means more time for fun, but sometimes you need a little boost to power through, or the opposite. An hour less of sunshine could be applicable in this situation as well. Whether you're staying up late, watching a late night football game, whatever it might be, 5 Hour Energy gives you that quick, refreshing pick-me-up whenever you need it. There is plenty that you can look at in terms of options. So head to 5hourenergy.com, find 15 flavors to choose from, including watermelon, blue raspberry, peach mango. You can even build your own 12-pack or 24-pack delivered right to your door. Need one now? Grab a 5 Hour Energy at your local grocery store or convenience store. They're everywhere. Stock up and stay energized. All right, welcome back. Connor Happer, Mitch Shermer here with you here on this Friday. Hope everybody has a great football weekend. We have an excellent college football slate coming up, especially in the Big Ten coming up this weekend, as the games we talked about yesterday. Okay,
every window is covered.
Oh yeah, that was the Big Ten's goal, right? You got Big Noon, you got CBS, you got NBC, and there's even a Peacock game that people might be interested in this week in the Big Ten Conference.
I went back and I wanted to see, because I'd heard a lot of people talking about the Open, CBS's Open in the Nebraska game, seconds that led up to kickoff with the music and the drones and everything. It was really good. It was good. Really good. Yeah.
Yeah.
the music gives you chills. I feel like kind of a dork for saying that, but because it's cheesy music, but it's so cool.
Here's Mitch and GI. Matt Vrzal's comments from his Monday press conference regarding NIL and rev share money was the first time I can remember him saying anything negative about the resources available at Nebraska. Is this something to keep an eye on moving forward? Do we perhaps not have enough resources to be as successful as we want to be?
Yeah, I don't think it was. Don't intend it to be negative. Like, he's just saying that they don't have unlimited money, which, I mean, come on, that's not. Nebraska's resources in NIL are strong, and look at the players that Nebraska signed out of the portal, and you have an idea of what they needed to pay. Nebraska outbid Georgia to get Dane Key. Nebraska got Rocco Spindler, who was coveted, Elijah Pritchett, who was coveted, and Isaiah Hunter, who was coveted. There were, Desan McCullough came from Oklahoma. There were Andrew Marshall was a coveted player from Idaho. So like the Huskers, they spent money. They have resources. I don't think this should be a narrative that because they didn't get every position, cover every position, and get every player that they pursued, that Matt Vrzal was complaining or saying negative things.
Yeah, I don't think so either. And I think it's okay to say to a certain point, like you can't go too far and be like, hey, we don't, have it, because Nebraska is well positioned in that they're positioned well enough in that category. But yeah, maybe it's an eye opener to some people is like they don't have the best in the country. Like,
right.
They don't have enough people to do that. Here is Jeff in Omaha. Nebraska's final drive against Michigan, Jacoby Blarney was driven out of bounds by a Wolverine defensive back. The official threw a flag for targeting. Seconds later, the call was overturned because he became a ball carrier, so it's not targeting. Could you please explain this?
Yeah. Okay. So he was no longer a defenseless receiver, and that's all it is. There's a different standard in applying the targeting penalty if you're hitting a defenseless offensive player. And once Barney positioned himself as a ball carrier, then that standard changed. Yeah.
And shout out to Barney because he always pops up after these vicious looking hits.
And he held on to the ball in that one too. Like watching that, even in like slow-mo, how did he maintain possession?
Yeah.
Let's go to Joe in Eastern Oregon. He says, is it just me, or did you notice that Javen Wright seemed to be slow to react or just plain missed the hole against Michigan? I tend to watch as a former coach and not a fan. Looking at PFF stats, he graded out okay, so maybe I'm missing something. I think the Nebraska linebackers as a whole should have made more of an impact in that game and could have plugged some gaps a little bit better. I don't know, without talking to Rob Dvoracek and John Butler about this, if they were being coached to do something different because of Underwood's mobility and perhaps spying him in some way. Obviously, not all of the linebackers are doing that on any play, but yeah, the linebackers I think should have been in better position at times. And I thought the same thing. Like, where's the second level?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times they were late getting to plays. And they have a tough job to do because oftentimes there's blockers that are coming after them as well. So they have to get around those guys. There's misdirection. They have to read like so many different things. So I'm not trying to make excuses for them. They got to go out and make plays. But yeah, there's been times where hole fillers, run fitters have been a step or two late. And that's been the difference in long runs so far this season for Nebraska.
Let's cover a couple more subjects here. I got two questions about the quarterback. The first one from Tim in Goddard, Kansas. He says, I understand the Dylan Raiola, Patrick Mahomes comparisons and would love for it to go away, but 30 years ago, everyone emulated Michael Jordan. No one complained about all the dudes who wanted to be like Mike. I don't get the big deal, so he wants to be like Mahomes. So does every kid who dreams of playing football in the NFL and plays QB in their backyard, along with a lot of high school quarterbacks. Block out the noise. GBR. And then Scott on X, somewhat, well, I don't know if he's tongue-in-cheek here or not. He says, if Dylan had worn a different number and had a different haircut, would he still be compared to Mahomes?
I don't know. Probably. Just because they have a connection, right? Like,
yeah.
So
and it's about more than that. It's some of the movements and mannerisms. Yeah, like too much to answer Tim's question. Like, too much is made of it. It's gotten to the point where people are just, fishing for clicks, I guess you could say in some cases, certainly not in all. I think there's been some genuine commentary, and then there's been some stuff that has been, outside the lines. So we'll leave it at that. Let's go to Scott, and we'll get to Meg too, and then we might have to call it a show. So Scott says, Mitch, I agree that the Huskers were much closer to a blowout loss against the Wolverines than a last-second victory. After listening to Matt Vrzal's comments at the Monday presser and seeing the line play so far this season, is it a foregone conclusion that Dylan Raiola will be let go in December, or is that a touchy subject considering who his nephews are? Yes, that's a touchy subject.
Yeah.
Do not expect him to be let go. No.
Also, I don't think it's like, even if he wasn't Dylan Raiola's uncle, it wouldn't be like, you got to pull the plug on this right now.
No, that's not what that's not
Yeah.
not what's going on here. Like, this is not an inept situation at all. Like, he's viewed as
the tackles specifically had a bad game. I still think they believe in that offensive line. I do as well. I don't think you're going to see edge rushers quite as good as Michigan has. That doesn't mean Nebraska has like a great offensive line or anything, but I think you can work with what Nebraska has and what Dylan Raiola has created.
There was a similar question from Cornholio, so we'll skip right over that and finish the mailbag here with Meg in Omaha, who says, do the Nebraska coaches think that our offensive and defensive lines are good because they're only seeing them go against each other? No, we've kind of addressed this before in talking about how the coaches definitely have the ability to discern what good football players look like, whether it's in practice or in games or whatever. And then Meg says, will Rule stop using basic analytics to make decisions and consider that his particular team has executed in a certain way all year? It doesn't matter if the analytics say to go for it on 4th and 2 at the 6 when your team has not been good in short yardage plays or in the red zone, even against inferior teams. So what say you on that, Connor?
Yeah, I actually don't think, Rule explained it on Monday. I don't think he was like, using or like directly following analytics and the decision-making process of what to do on 4th down. I think he had the information, and then he went off the field, and they felt like, they needed points there. They needed a touchdown there. And so that's why they went for it. And I'm fine with what they did for the record. I would like to say one more thing about the offensive line, defensive line thing, because I've got this a lot this week on my show. Like, people are pissed because they think they got sold a bill of goods before the season, saying that the offensive line and the defensive line are good. Like, defensive line is going to be hell on wheels and stuff like that. And people are like, hey, this isn't that good. Like, you have to take all that always with a grain of salt. First of all, and like Nebraska's, I think what he meant when he said hell on wheels on defense was that they're going to be moving around a lot and stunting, and that's what they are doing. Not that they're necessarily going to be wreaking havoc and in the backfield. And Rule's always going to be complimentary of his players in a press conference situation where he's talking to the entire state. So I just think we have to discern. We kind of got to figure that one out a little bit going forward. It doesn't have to be, if you thought all of Nebraska's position groups were the best in the country before the season, based on what the head coach said, you were probably in for a rude awakening this year.
Yeah. And let's see how it plays out. This next third of the season, we're now going into week 6 when we come back and rejoin you on Monday. And that's the start of a huge 4-game stretch in October for Nebraska that's going to separate a lot of this truth from fiction and hyperbole from reality. So we are very interested to see what we learn about Nebraska's offensive and defensive lines over these next 4 games. All right. Thanks for joining us today. We're sorry if we didn't get to every question in the mailbag. We needed, of course, to spend some time at the beginning of the show and wanted to remember Matt Vrzal. So we'll continue to think about him and his family and friends and the people affected in the community as this weekend goes on and moving forward. So with that, thank you very much for joining us. It is a big moment for Locked On. College football fans, Locked On and Fire TV present College Football Kickoff, your ultimate college football weekly preview. Drake Toll, Gary Patterson, Jesse Holly, all of the Locked On experts will get their shot to join this show. It's a college football preview only Locked On can do. Catch College Football Kickoff every Thursday throughout the season on Fire TV.